Tonight, a step towards justice for almost 1,000 Aussies who lost around $23 million to a cold-blooded scam. The bank accused of letting them down now being taken to court by the corporate watchdog.
It's the sophisticated bank impersonation scam that rocked the lives of hundreds of HSBC customers.
I realised that the scammer took $49,900, which is my whole life savings.
Fraudsters would disguise their texts to appear in the same chain as legitimate HSBC messages, then coerce customers into sharing personal information under the guise of protecting their accounts.
I received a text message from the HSBC number. I called the number that was on the text message. I thought I was speaking to HSBC staff.
ASIC today suing the bank in federal court, accusing them of failing to adequately protect its customers.
We allege HSBC Australia's failings were widespread and systemic. Bank customers can lose their life savings in an instant, which is why we take matters like this one so seriously.
Around 950 reports of unauthorised transactions were made to HSBC Australia between January 2020 and August this year. Customers collectively lost around $23 million, some individuals robbed of more than 90,000.
We allege that from at least January 2023, HSBC Australia was aware of the risks of unauthorised transactions occurring and that their fraud controls were incomplete.
Not only did HSBC fail to prevent the scams, the corporate watchdog also alleges it did little to help those who fell victim to them.
On average, customers waited 145 days for HSBC to investigate reports that they had been scammed. The bank compounded these problems by locking some customers out of their accounts for months.
HSBC says protecting its customers from scammers remains its top priority, and that it's continuing to make significant investments in our fraud and scam prevention, detection and response. But for victims like Andrew Kreibke, who's on a disability pension, those measures have come too late.
He had our names, our location, address, money in the bank accounts. He knew everything.
His $50,000 life savings seemingly lost forever.
Losing that amount of money, yeah, it changes your life. We're not rich people by any means. Actually, I'm getting a little bit emotional talking about it now.
Well, Andrew Kreibke, who you just saw in that package, has been good enough to join us now. Andrew, we are so sorry that this has happened to you. Have you heard anything from HSBC about your lost money?
Not since about the 4th month of this year, where I had an email saying that it was all finalised and nothing else will be done.
Wow, and how did you react to that?
Life savings, it's hard to swallow when you lose all that money over one little transaction that you thought was a legit fraud investigation from the bank.
So, given that, what's your reaction to the fact that ASIC are suing HSBC?
Hopefully, and it's not only us that's lost this amount of money. There's been people, younger people than us in Australia, that's lost all their savings and they don't have a leg to stand on. So hopefully the process will go forward and they will be held accountable for it.
Andrew, ASIC says HSBC did little to help the scam victims. Was that your experience?
Oh, absolutely. I was advised that, well, it was your problem. You carried out the transaction. It wasn't even a transaction. It was just a scam, a fraud check with me to make sure the cards weren't duplicated. And we didn't move any money or anything. So what they've done, how they've got the information from HSBC and how HSBC's handled it, it's appalling.
Andrew, we've been doing so many of these stories like this throughout this year, and it does seem to be a common thing that the bank try to put the responsibility back onto the person who's been scammed. How much of this do you think is their responsibility, and then how much is your responsibility?
Well, I always understand that with the banking situation, if you have an unusual transaction, the bank will advise you or contact you first to make sure that you did make that transaction. In this situation, that didn't happen. Now, my wife, she got a message from the bank, and because she was working, she didn't get back to the phone for half an hour, and then it took her another half an hour to get onto the bank to say that, no, that wasn't a transaction that she produced. They never even contacted me over that. I didn't get that message. They should have in place better protective systems for this situation, not to go forward until the transaction is verified. It's ruining people's lives.
Yeah, it feels like such a tough question. $50,000 is such a lot of money. What impact has that had on yours? You said it's ruining people's lives. It must have had such a massive impact on you.
Well, it did. I live on a partial disability pension. My back, I was supposed to have operations on my back, now I can't afford it. Simple as that. My wife was working as a cleaner for Anglicare, so we were living on minimum money. So you just have to make do. We were lucky in a financial position that we don't have a mortgage. That's our only saving grace.
Well, Andrew, we really appreciate you taking the time to tell us your story, and we wish you well with whatever comes next.
Thank you.
And a full statement from HSBC can also be found on our website.